I think this podcast might end up being an outlet for me, a a release or something. That's how it's working today, at least. Got my microphone in the camera here and everything. Oh well, the professionals put microphones right in the camera. I have this blue snowball daddy. Shout out to producer Lee. Here's the microphone for those watching. Most microphones in the camera actually look somewhat professional. Like when Tim has his in there, it looks good, but this thing looks like a big weird circle. But anyway, the low production quality is a pillar of this show. But yeah, it's been good for the podcast. We're rolling. We're putting things out. But today I need it just for just out of almost venting. I'm not going to vent about my real job, but that is like the main reason. I just I'm so upset with things going on at work, and I will not go into it because people don't care and probably shouldn't say some things. But the real job, right, like baseball stuff, is a true escape. I think that's how a lot of people feel this way. Like the fantasy sports, the sports overall, entertainment, whatever, it's all just kind of a nice break away from the responsibilities of real life. So I've got basically three parts of my life, right? The real career, which is typically pretty nice and easy and slow, and then it's just not the case right now. Everybody keeps quitting on me. I work with nobody that speaks English. Anyway, it turns out it's harder to work with people when you don't speak the same language, right? But global corporations. And the second part is the family and the kids and stuff, which is cool. Like certainly that's not a point of frustration or stress for me, luckily. But the thing I like doing the most, I mean, shout out to my kids and playing Hot Wheels and Don't Break the Ice. Who doesn't like to put those plastic ice cubes together in that 8x8 pattern over and over again and have your 3-year-old smash the crap out of it in 3 seconds, no, it is fun playing with the kids and having kids around. Life would be very dull without it. And you can see that in the background, right? It's actually cleaner down here. That I've cleaned up quite a bit. I am thinking about getting maybe I should just do a green screen or something and have an actual better looking situation. But the thing that gets me the most amount of the thing I want to do the most, if I have a free hour of the day, sit quietly with no other distractions and just do this MLB data warehouse stuff. So that's what we're doing here. Certainly some news to go over. I just want to get more podcasts out. Nothing particular today, but we've got free agent signings to talk about. It's almost like a lot of people, it can seem a little pretentious, like how Schwarber just signed with the Phillies, right? So you must need my immediate reaction to it, because if I don't get on here and talk about it, what's the point, right? Like what's the point of anything in baseball happening if I don't respond to it? So before that, shout out to Hunter. We should have him on the podcast someday. I should have done that today maybe, but this is all last second. Hunter wrote, he's been doing articles, news reactions and stuff, mostly for me. And he wrote this, published it on Sunday, free agent predictions. Not hard to get this one right, but he did say Schwarber, 5 years, $140 million, which was what is that? Almost exactly right. Free signs with the Phillies for $150 million, 5 years, $150. So very close. Again, it was always going to be the Phillies in my mind. I got the Phillies hat on. Don't confuse that for me being a Philly fan. It was just something I picked up late last year. Excited to pick a team. I needed a new hat, and this one fits really nicely. And I like the bell. I like that patriotism that comes with the Liberty Bell. But yeah, Hunter at least got it right? Like even if it's an easy one, you get the easy predictions right, and then you're onto something. Because it's real bad if you get the easy ones wrong. It was pretty clear. Like Schwarber seems to like Philly. They wanted him back. Mutual interest there, obviously. Schwarber's when you're a free agent, you go play the market, you go to the other meetings, you got to lead on to your to your home team that you're not just going to take whatever they offer you, right? You got to at least pretend like, oh, I could go elsewhere. I could go to Cincinnati and see, I'll just take the highest offer. And then that's probably what you always should say. You should always say, I'll take the highest offer, because then that incentivizes the team that you actually want to play with to make you the highest offer. So not hard to see that coming. Schwarber, if we want to go into some of the numbers, I don't really see much of a point in like telling you that Kyle Schwarber is really good. Let's look at these Phillies numbers. I actually had a tweet recently. I've been going through each team on the dashboard and kind of just hitting the most interesting numbers or whatever. So let's go full screen here. So in a lot of ways, it was Schwarber's best season. I think probably it was, right. 100 and what was I just going to say? 100 something, 56 home runs, 12.8 plate appearances per home run. If we pull up his actual Fangraphs page, it was pretty just striking that he would have this career best season at 32. I guess it shouldn't be that surprising, but 10 more homers, 9 more homers than his previous career high. It's just really come into really Philly's been the magic for him. And I suppose not even really in those first 2 years, 2022 with the Philly, 46 homers, 47 homers in 2023. So obviously that's an extremely good hitter. It doesn't really matter what you do. Other than if you hit 40 homers, right? Like it's a good season no matter what else. But he hit 218 in 2022. He hit 197 in 2023. The OBPs were 320, 340. So when he wasn't hitting a home run, he wasn't doing too much, right? And you can see that kind of in the weighted runs created plus 129, 118. Obviously an all-star player, but not like MVP numbers or anything like that. Last 2 years for Schwarber is really when it's kicked up. 391 WOBA last year, 152 WRC plus. That's the best of his career. Put together a 365 on base with the 56 home runs, 563 slug. That was his first time over 504 in slugging since 2021. So just his best season, probably will be his best looking back. I doubt you can do that again. I doubt that anybody can do that again. Now, like Judge has done that again per se, right? Like he's kind of had his multiple years well above 50 homers, but the best year is probably behind Schwarber. 5 more years now. He'll be a Philly till he's 37. Don't think it'll be going super well for him by 35, 36. Probably this K rate, which has always been high. You'll probably see that sneak up a little bit. You're going to lose some of that power. He probably ends up back at like the 32, 33, 34 homer range with a 230 batting average and that kind of stuff in a couple of years. But obviously a MVP candidate next year for the Phillies. And at a 30 million average annual value, like pretty good. The Phillies, the one thing about them, right, is that you can maybe knock in the one thing that I thought maybe they wouldn't bring him back is because of the ages of the team. Like it kind of seemed like it seems a little bit like the window for the Phillies to win a World Series might be closing. And I've talked to actually, I have a buddy. He's a retired guy at church. He's still a buddy. It's not like I can't be friends with older guys, but he's got 30 years on me at least. But he's a Phillies fan. He grew up in Philly, so I talked to the Phillies about. I talked Phillies with him a lot. But look at these ages. Schwarber's next year. Schwarber will be 33 for most of the year. Turner will be in his upper 30. He'll be 32, right? Castellanos, I think he's free agent, so it doesn't matter. But Harper's 33. Real Muto's gone. Bohm, who's never been that good, is 29. Anyway, like the core has been Schwarber, Turner, Harper, right? And they are all certainly past the prime ages. Maybe you can't say that with Schwarber. Take that back with Schwarber. But Harper, Turner have had their best seasons behind them almost surely. Harper really was like, you're questioning a lot about Harper now. 27 homers, 487 slugs. Still like not a huge problem, but he's not an MVP candidate at this point. And then you have Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Like those were kind of the aces for them for a long time. Wheeler's 35. And with this thoracic outlet thing, like just no wonder. I seriously question if he'll ever be an ace again. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be even with Schwarber back, like this team looks worse every year because they're They're getting old. They have all this money committed to Turner, Harper, and now Schwarber, and it's going to be, so the point being, I just thought that maybe they would start moving a little bit toward the rebuild almost, but we'll see. They got some prospects. I think Aiden Smith is a big name. We'll certainly be talking about Phillies prospects pretty soon on the prospect preview, and that'll be good. But not a surprise and a good move for the Phillies. They're a playoff team still, right? I mean, even in the worst case where Wheeler doesn't come back, or he comes back, and I guess he'll come back, but maybe he's like more of an SP2, SP3. Like, they have a pretty good pitcher in Christopher Sanchez and Luzardo to pick up for him. Andrew Painter maybe comes up, makes an impact for them. So they certainly have a winning team next year. And with Schwarber back, I would say that their World Series odds are certainly going to be in the top 5 or 6, you would think. But anyway, a little over the hill Phillies teams. We're going to have to see a rebuild eventually. Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. The best organizations never have to rebuild. But when you're paying that much money to guys that are not doing, the Harpers, the Turners, the Schwarbers, a bunch of mid-30s, 30-year-old guys, Wheeler too, obviously making a lot of money, it gets a little bit tough. But we'll see. So not a surprise to see Schwarber back in Philly. And let's go ahead and just look at the projections. So I've been writing some stuff. This new post came out today, MLB Data Warehouse, for free for everybody. 2026 projection standouts. The projection model is, if you know the password in the web app, if you're a paid subscriber, you got to get familiar with the web app, although it will be changing quite a bit. I got my in-process ranks going on, but the 2026 projections tab on that web app, you'll have to go to the resource glossary and get the password. But you can see the projections here right on that web app. And if we look for Schwarber, which I suppose he won't actually be here because we'll have to do a refresh. He doesn't project on the Phillies, but 650 plate appearances, 35 homers, 84 RBIs, 92 runs, 237 batting average, 7 steals is the projection for Schwarber. Projections are always going to be lower than you think. Steamer's at 38 homers. It's just projections use median outcomes. We really regress things a lot, and you're just never going to see a projection of 50 homers, right? Even with Judge and Ohtani, we're at 43. That's about as high as a projection can go. There's technical reasons and mathematical reasons for that, but yeah, Schwarber projecting for the 3rd most homers, and that is assuming a neutral park. I think Philly's probably pretty close to a neutral park. Let's look at the park factors, even though these aren't the exact park factors I use. This is a new thing, but I have an MLB park factors resource now, which I've shared to people. But if you look for home runs, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Philly, where are you? Philly Citizens Bank Park is at a 101 home run factor. So there's been a lot of talk over the years about it being a hitter's ballpark. It's pretty neutral. So this probably bumps up Schwarber's projection, maybe 1 or 2 homers. But, if he would have gone to the Giants or something, not that was ever really a threat, but I guess we should actually be looking at homers for lefties. Philly is home run factor for lefties 102, so a little bit better than the overall. They're 100 for righties and 102 for lefties to get to that 101 overall. Now, if you would have ended up in San Francisco with a 68 home run park factor for lefties, then that projection probably drops 3 or 4 homers. The best place to be would have been Great American Ballpark with a 25% above average home run park factor. So that's here. Again, I've showed this in a post, like, my park factors they're done well. They're done right, I think, as much as that's possible, but probably not as tested and not as good necessarily as like the baseball savant stuff, but they're there. So yeah, 40-ish homers expectation for Schwarber with a bunch of runs, with a bunch of counting stats. Always a little bit better in OBP leagues because of the batting average. Even while it's been better, it still is like, if he hits 250, you're feeling like that was pretty lucky, but not a lot of singles from that guy, but plenty of walks, plenty of homers to say the least. Schwarber. So the other one that, shout out to Hunter, got right, we just heard today that Edwin Diaz signs a 3-year deal with the Dodgers. It was $69 million. So that, do the math there, right? $23 million per year to Edwin Diaz to be the clear Dodgers closer. That is great news for people who have already drafted him and people who have already drafted Devin Williams. So if we look at the relief pitcher ADP, nobody had any reservations whatsoever about Edwin Diaz being a non-closer somewhere. He's a free agent this whole time. What we saw with Devin Williams is that he was the number 11 relief pitcher off the board. So there were some questions maybe about him, especially after when he landed with the Mets last week. There was this worry that, oh man, what if they bring back Diaz too? Then Williams probably isn't a closer. And he's, at that point in a standard roto fantasy league like what we have with NFBC, he's pretty much useless because the ratios just don't matter when you're only getting 60 innings a year. And they matter a little bit, but it's muted. You're really just looking for saves. And if both of those guys were going to be in the New York bullpen, then it was going to be Diaz for the saves, the bulk of them at least, 80% or so. But now Williams is clearly the guy, and Diaz is clearly the guy in LA. If we look at what was happening before, drafters were thinking maybe Sasaki, but they got to be thinking about making him a starter, right? He's got to start the year in the rotation. I don't think there's, especially now. I really don't think that was ever a consideration. I don't think they were ever seriously being like, yes, Sasaki will be our closer. It's just not. There's way too much upside. They really want that guy to turn into an awesome starter. So now pretty clear. Tanner Scott was going in the top 250. That's going to be totally gone. Like he should be out of the top 400 at this point in NFBC leagues at least. So certainly we'll get plenty of holds and business, and you can't even say good ratios with him because he's been so inconsistent. But yeah, Diaz one of the best in the league, probably the best closer of this decade, right? Overall, he missed the year with that last time the WBC. Remember that World Baseball Classic a couple of years ago? What did he do? Break his torn ACL or something in the WBC? Missed the whole year. But unlike other guys, like the elite reliever, a lot of times you see them just kind of all like have these random seasons where they're not very good, but that hasn't been the case with Edwin Diaz. I will say that, like, as we pull up the profile here, let's finish out on Diaz before I go to the next point. Diaz 2021, a 26% K to walk ratio, 2022, 43% K to walk ratio. That was that just insane year. He had a 50% strikeout rate in 61 innings. 2024, after the missed season in 2023, Diaz 39% K rate, 9% walk rate, 29.6% K to walk, 3.52 ERA. So 1.2 home run per 9 was the difference that season. I should make this bigger. With relievers, right? Like since you're only throwing 50 to 60 innings, a couple mistimed home runs, like if you go up a grand slam in your 55 inning season or 65 inning season, like that juices the ERA up. Like every little inning matters quite a bit. So you can have a bad ERA from a guy, but it hasn't been the case overall. So Diaz last year, 62 innings with the Mets, 38% K rate, 8% walk rate, 1.63 ERA. And the ERA not nearly as important for these relievers because a lot of times those ERAs will be bloated by one really bad outing. And at that point, you're only cost your team maybe one game. So last year, Diaz had only 3 outings all year, giving up multiple earned runs. He had almost always a 0. I mean, you look at this, I don't know how many total outings this is, probably about 50 some outings. And he gave up a run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. He gave up an earned run, at least an earned run, in only 8 of his appearances last year, 98 strikeouts in 66 innings. And now I don't know, is he the RP1 now, right now? If you're looking at, I would say so, right? Dodgers clearly going to project to win 100, 102, 103 games. I would imagine they'd be at the top of the league. And now they haven't had a clear, defined closer since Kenley Jansen. And they certainly do now. They're not going to be, maybe a couple situations where they use him in the 8th or whatever, but I think Diaz is going to get 85% or more of the saves for the Dodgers. So he's already number 2. Does he move ahead of Munoz here? Clearly the top tier for closers, I would say there's 4 of them, and the ADP bears that out. Munoz, Diaz, Miller, and Duran. The Padres came out and said Miller's a reliever. They're not going to mess around with him in the rotation. So that's your elite tier of relievers there. And feeling pretty good. The one thing, the Dodgers have to be like the only team that will spend. I guess not. I guess not. But so, we've been talking about the Pirates and some small market teams and stuff. Like, there is no chance that a non-elite team, a non-big market team goes and spends $39 million. Is that what it was? Sorry, what was the deal? 30. I already forgot it was 69. Yeah, so almost $70 million on a reliever. Like, that's something that your smaller market teams, non-World Series contenders, are going to do. Obviously, it helps to win 2 World Series in a row. Like, as if the LA didn't already have enough resources and stuff. Those World Series certainly bring in the cash. So they're living the good life. They're doing the luxury thing where you can spend money on relievers. And I'd say that that's one part of kind of the for the inequality, the lack of competitive balance in baseball, is that luxuries are just not a question for most of the league. Most teams aren't. We've got even an average team, spending 130, 140 million on payroll. Like, I'm not going to give a reliever 30 million of that, like a significant chunk for a guy that's only going to be able to throw 60, 70 innings a year. I mean, I've got to cover. Well, you got to cover at least, at minimum, 1,458 innings. You're near 1,500 and innings, and then the best a reliever is going to do is about 65. They're doing some math here. Let's say 70 divided by 162 times 9. You're about 5% max of your total innings. So a relief pitcher can only influence 5% of your season. Now, I guess you could say the same thing, like a hitter is only 1/9 of your team, which isn't exactly right, but 1/9 times 162 is 18. Well, let's see. How would we even do that? 9 spots times like 4. 9 times 4 is about how many plate appearances you get per game, right? And then, well, I don't know. I was trying to figure out like what percent. Can't do the math on the fly like that, but obviously a starting pitcher, maybe that's a better comparison. A starting pitcher is going to throw you hopefully 170 innings, and that is basically 2.5 times what a reliever does. So yeah, most normal teams just not going to be spending 30, 40 million on relievers, especially because they are not. The Diaz is like, that's an extreme case. I'm not saying he's replaceable, but it's very, very easy to find. Probably the easiest position in baseball to like build efficiently is relief pitchers. You can find really good relief pitchers for very cheap, pretty easily. So yeah, Dodgers, the rich get richer. They finally have a dedicated, reliable closer that will get all of those saves, not all, but most. And that's a different situation than we've seen for them in the past. One other thing, I actually was planning on leading the podcast with this, is the podcast got a lot more interesting because I was going to do this, and then in the time I was finishing up my work, the Diaz and Schwarber signings landed. So Mike Soroka, not nearly as interesting, but he signs with the Diamondbacks on a 1-year deal. And I don't know, the Diamondbacks are, with Zach Gallen probably leaving, I think almost certainly, and Corbin Burns not going to be ready for the beginning of the season, Soroka comes into this rotation probably as one of the better. I mean, it's a little bit, it's kind of bad news for Arizona to say Soroka is one of your better starters. But right now, the rotation projection is Ryan Nelson, Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Pfaadt, and Michael Soroka. Not a lot to like. I mean, Nelson, Erod, and Pfaadt are, I don't know, Pfaadt is hardly, I was going to say they're all like at least big leaguers, but Pfaadt with a 4.22 FIP, the 4.12 Sierra last year, a 5.25 ERA. He's got a career 5.13 ERA now. Like, it hasn't been good. So Soroka's probably there. I might say he might be their best starting pitcher last year. 25% K rate, 17.4% K to walk, which is pretty solid. 44% ground ball rate. I really liked his fastball. I mean, I was pretty into him last year as like a streamer, as a guy to pick up, and he had some nice outings, but overall, like, it didn't end up being that great. 10.8% swinging strike rate, 37% ball rate, 44% ground ball rate. Like, nothing absolutely pitiful, terrible, but it hasn't he's an SP4 or so, and he'll just not the most overpowering guy. I mean, his fastball's at 93.6. He does have a lot of extension, and the release point stuff is good. The fastball plays up a little bit, and it had a fine 9.7% swinging strike rate, 51% strike rate for Soroka's four-seamer. Then he throws this slurve, which he throws only to righties. He throws it 2% of, or sorry, that didn't order right. No, yeah, incorrect. He throws the slurve 36% to righties and 34% to lefties. So it is a pitch he gets away with against both sides of the plate. Against righties and lefties, both a 25% K rate. Just got hit a little bit harder against lefties, a 2.2 whip plus, which is high, and that's a measure of how many total bases you're giving up per inning. Only a 9.8% swinging strike rate. Like, yeah, if you see a guy with kind of a slower fastball and then a slurve and not a great changeup, which is the case with Soroka, he's going to have troubles against lefties. It's a good park for him. I mean, it's pretty, the Chase Field has a pretty favorable park factor. So for deep leagues, I do think Soroka is someone I'd be fine with as like a bench guy in an NFBC league. I'm guessing his ADP is around mid 400s. Yeah, 450. Slipping down a little bit, maybe into the 420, 410. Now that you at least know he's got a job, I think he's better than people give him credit for, and I would certainly be interested in him in the 400s in drafts. But there's really not much ceiling, not much upside. And I do think he's going to struggle pretty bad against lefties. But maybe that park will help him get away with it, because there's some that outfield and right center in Chase Field, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty cavernous, as they say. A couple more things. I wanted to check this Fangraphs free agent tracker. I've thought about making my own. My main, like, one of the things that guides me in creating content or creating tools for MLB Data Warehouse is the ultimate goal of me not having to ever use other sites. So that's kind of where I get a lot of my ideas. Like, I kind of see what stuff on these other sites I like to use, and then I just kind of make my own version of it, so I don't have to go other places, and I just know where things are, and I can offer different stuff. But yeah, I mean, if I don't really see much of a point in adding another free agent tracker when there's a good one here. It's obviously not useful during the season anyway. So the crowdsourced results on Schwarber were 4 years, 112 million. So they were low. That was I guess it was pretty close. Just add another year on, and they were pretty much right on. They said 4 for 112 at a 28 million AAV. So just a little bit higher than that. So they nailed that one. It's pretty good. Crowdsourcing is pretty, the wisdom of the crowd, always a good way to figure things out rather than listening to one expert or whatever. Let's see what all the, at least if you have an educated population of people guessing, then they'll usually get it pretty close to right. I'm not sure how the crowdsource works exactly. I don't think this is I don't know if it's wide open for anybody to contribute to, but that's pretty good. Let's see what they said for Edwin Diaz. See on here. They said 4 years, 84 million, 21 million AAV. So they were low on the average, but the Dodgers gave them a higher yearly for one less year. So makes sense. And Diaz, as a 32-year-old, not sure if the Dodgers will be wanting much paying him. At a 35-year-old reliever, he's probably going to have lost quite a bit. So 3 years of Diaz there. Other guys, Bellinger, the Phillies were on him. Now that's off the table. With Schwarber, they're not going to need him. The projection there, 27 million AAV for Bellinger. Good overall player. Doesn't really stand out in any particular, he's not a 40 homer guy or a 35, 40 steal guy or a 350 batting average or anything like that. Just really solid across the board. Only 30 years old. Him and Kyle Tucker are probably the two biggest bats now available. I throw in Pete Alonso there as well. We'll see. Now, the Phillies, you would think, are going to draw back, and they're kind of off the board for these other big names. But let's see what else Hunter predicted. He's 2 for 2, so he's got Framber going to the Mets. He's got Bichette going to Detroit. That's interesting. 7-year deal prediction for Bichette. What did he say? Did he have a Bellinger in here? He didn't pick out Bellinger overall, but let's see if he can keep it going. He's 2 for 2 in predictions. Bichette to Detroit, Framber to the Mets, Tucker to the Blue Jays. Is that what he said? Kyle Tucker? Yeah. He's projecting Kyle Tucker to the Blue Jays. That certainly makes some sense to me. There's also some trade candidates he talks about. Freddie Peralta. It seems like the Brewers are actually thinking about cutting down and trading some guys. Kind of a strange situation there, but I guess not really when, they're kind of a smaller market team, not a ton of cash to spend, but it's surprising to see a team win the division and just kind of be the obviously best team. They had the number one seed in the NL, and they're going to be selling good players. It's not only like we're just not really involved in the big names in free agency, but we're actively trying to get rid of our better players. Not that they're actively trying to get rid of them, but certainly seeing what they can get for Peralta. And that's the smart way to play if you're a smaller market team. Like, get rid of your older assets at the peak, and then keep building, keep kind of recycling the young guys, and just keep the good young, cheap, controllable cores coming up all at the same time. And something the Brewers have been able to do really well. Okay, one other thing before I wrap up. I started a new project. Project is a generous word, I guess, but I've made Twitter lists before, X lists, but I have now the idea. When I go on my feed, I see a bunch of Pirates stuff, I see baseball stuff, and other business that how the algorithms work. But most of the baseball stuff, it highlights the Pirates stuff for me, and that makes me think that the Pirates are more talked about and stuff. I see all the stories with them, but I miss I miss plenty of other teams that I would be seeing otherwise. So I started making a list for each team, and on the screen I'm kind of showing the Marlins one. The goal here is to have a good, solid Twitter list for all 30 teams that I can kind of just flip through throughout the day and kind of see what's going on, or when a team like right now, I would go to the Phillies one. In fact, we can do that. We go to because I've got 6 teams done, and they're really just kind of started. I need to add more people, better stuff, better accounts. So then when something happens, or when a big game happens or whatever, I can go to this list and kind of see what people are saying, and I can even find news tidbits and stuff from that. So I've got a ways to go. 25 teams left to capture, 24. I had the idea that what initially I wanted to do was make an app on that MLBDW web app where you could pick a team and then have that list pull up and kind of just see what's going on. Now, that won't be able to happen because Twitter API has a crazy cost to it. I don't know any technical people out there that have messed with Twitter API. It used to be totally free, and you could do all kinds of sweet stuff. You could embed, you can make apps, you could scrape tweets, do searches, follow people, unfollow people, do all kinds of stuff. But now that cost to do everything you used to be able to do, it's seriously $1,000 a month. Elon made that change when he came, and that's been really annoying for me because I used to have a lot of cool Twitter bot stuff going on, and by now, if I wouldn't have gotten that taken away from me, I'm not going to pay $1,000 a month. Obviously, I'm not going to give away a third of the income that MLBDW makes per year. It would be a little less than it'd be less than third, but whatever. To pay for that, right? Even though you can do cool stuff, it's just I'd probably pay $50 to $100 a month, but I cannot do it. So anyway, back in the day, I would use people that have followed for a long time. You might remember the drink bot. It would tell me every night. It would roll a dice at 8:00, totally automatically, and if it hit on a 1/3 chance, it would tell me that I could have a beer that night or something like that. I was trying to just kind of cut back on the alcohol a little bit. So that was fun. And I also used it to tell a little bit of a secret here, to expose myself. We're 2 years past this now when the API got shut down or, put behind that crazy paywall. I used to have a script that would go I had a list of big fantasy baseball accounts. It would go find people, it would scrape their followers list, look at the last people to have followed them, like Scott White, CBS Fantasy, Baseball Today, whatever, all the big name fantasy baseball accounts, find people that followed them recently, and it would follow them from my account. So then that person would see, John PGH just followed you. And then a lot of times they'd follow back. And that would happen a couple of times a day, every day on a script. So I didn't have to do anything about it. So my account would just constantly be following people that are interested in fantasy baseball. And it grew my account quite a bit that way, which is maybe snaky or whatever. Maybe that's a little bit cheating. I don't know what you want to call it. But it was fun and it worked. And I was able to do all kinds of other stuff too, like automated tweets. And I can still do some of the automated tweets, luckily, but it's all way different. And anyway, the one thing you definitely can't do without paying that crazy price for the API is you can't make apps. You can't scrape tweets. You can't hook into the API to get other constantly updated tweets. So the app won't happen unless something changes. with the Twitter rules, which is too bad, but there'll be 30 lists. You can just go have in your list and go see what's up with different teams. And if you have any accounts you need me to add that you think should be on each team's list, like, let me know about that. That'll be fun, especially once the season gets going. But yeah, I'm looking to scrape. I want to be a news bro. I want to find those little tidbits. Mining the news, Jeff Zimmerman on Fangraphs, right? That guy's kind of insane, but of course, he would say the same thing about me, but he's not on Twitter anymore. I think he's a Blue Sky bro. Like, rest in peace, bro. I missed you. But mining the news is great. Finding little tidbits like that and talking about them for fantasy baseball purposes. So that's kind of the goal there. So those lists will be coming slowly. I don't know. It's not the thing on top of my priority list right now, but that's something going on. So that'll do it for the podcast. I was going to bring up the fact that Aroldis Chapman is playing for the UK in the World Baseball Classic, which is just so funny. But I mean, that's it. I brought it up. I said it. What else is there to say? Apparently his mom or dad or something is Jamaican, at least a little bit Jamaican. And Jamaica was at one point owned or whatever. It was a what's the word for it? It was like a territory of the United Kingdom. Therefore, 4 weird long degrees of separation. Therefore, Chapman can play for the UK World Baseball Classic team, which I'm surprised they even have one, right? I mean, I guess they had one last time, but I don't know. You would think that he would go play for Dominican Republic or Venezuela, wherever he's from. He's from one of those two, right? So, and then Jarren Duran's going to play for Mexico. Like, is there a more American white player than Jarren Duran? But he's going to go play for the Mexican team, and that's fine. I guess as long as you can make any kind of case that somebody in my family is kind of a part of this country, then you can play for whoever. But that's just funny. It'll be funny seeing Aroldis Chapman absolutely light dudes up while the UK, with no other players you've ever heard of, loses in the World Baseball Classic really quick. Good for his fantasy value, at least, because he could have ended up playing for a team that might actually make a run, and now he'll just play a couple games and be done or whatever it is. So that'll be fun. World Baseball Classic coming up in a few months. The Olympics, too, in February, right? A lot of good sports stuff in late winter. But December 9th, we got a lot more free agents to go. We'll be covering it all. Team previews go on. Prospect preview podcasts go on with Tim and Doc, and things keep rolling. So thanks for being here. We'll be back soon. See you later.